last time comprehensive changes were made to the regulations. So on the Fish and Wildlife Service endangered species page, there's quite a bit on regulation revisions, which were done in a transparent public process that will lead to what the agency believes is a clear and effective way to advance the ultimate goal of species recovery. So we'll take a look at the PowerPoint presentation and use that to, as the agency explained the changes. Again, this is an agency slide, and we'll put it in our context of identify, protect, and recover. Nothing about recover, but there is stuff about identify and protect. Let's take identify first. We'll look at identifying species and then critical habitat. So first, listing. The words foreseeable future and then economic analysis are in these changes. So the foreseeable future, the agency says it extends only as far as they can reasonably determine threats and the species' responses to those threats that are likely. And it'll be done on a case-by-case basis using the best available data for each species. No specific time frames are necessary. Qualitative descriptions are okay. This is pretty much the way the regulations are written before the changes. And you can see that on this. This is from the Code of Federal Regulations. And the strikeouts are language that was deleted, and the yellow underline is language that was added. To me, that's not a big change. I'm not going to bother to read that to you because it'll take too long. Economic analysis. This is what the regulation says. The Secretary shall make any determination solely on the basis of the best available scientific and commercial information about a species' status. And they are striking the language without reference to possible economic or other impacts of such determination. They are striking it, they say, because that language is not in the statute itself. It's just something the agency wrote into the regulations, so they're taking it out now. And they say that the impacts information, if it is compiled, it's not mandatory, would be to inform the public in the interest of transparency. And that needs some emphasis. Okay, critical habitat in the identification process. It's going to clarify when designation may not be prudent, revise the process and standards for designation of unoccupied critical habitat, and third, revise the definition of physical and biological features. This does not seem to be a significant controversial change, those things. This one is controversial. The no-take protection. In ESA Section 4 addresses protective regulations for threatened species. And these are called species-specific 4D rules. Remember that, 4D rules. And this links with Section 9 of the Act, which is to protect against a take. And I'll explain further. Here's the agency explaining. This rescinds current regulations that automatically apply prohibitions for endangered species to threatened species. The protections for species listed as threatened in the future will be made on a case-by-case basis, tailored to what's necessary and advisable for that species via species-specific 4D rule. There will be no change in protections for species currently listed as threatened, and this aligns the FWS with NIFs. Further explanation. ESA Section 9 includes a list of take prohibitions that apply to all endangered species, and I read you that list: Harris, harm, pursue, etc. In the 1970s, the FWS developed implementing regulations that automatically applied these Section 9 prohibitions for endangered species to all species that were listed as threatened species. This was called a blanket rule, unless there was a specific 4D rule put into place. The new regulations will discontinue the use of the blanket rule for threatened species in the future. Change is forward-looking and won't affect any species currently listed as threatened. The last change has to do with the Section 7 no jeopardy protection. The revisions address alternative consultation mechanisms, revise the definitions of destruction or adverse modification and effects of the action. Third, address certainty of mitigation proposed by action agencies. And fourth, otherwise improve the consultation process. Done with that. Okay, how has the media reported these changes and how do people feel about them? Back in June 2017, the President and CEO of Defenders of Wildlife said, any changes to the current ESA will weaken its purpose. Consider the past 2 years, 2015 to 2017, when Congress has attacked the ESA, nearly 150 bills, amendments, and riders, almost all by Republicans. For example, Barrasso's modernization bill would serve as a legislative equivalent of a Trojan horse to gut the ESA. We'll revisit that term a little later. In May 2018, the Trump administration may alter protections for threatened species. July of 2018, Western lawmakers introduced bills to amend the ESA. Again, Dems slammed proposed changes to the Endangered Species Act at that date, and more than 100 opposed those changes. In July 2018, the administration introduced a proposal to roll back ESA protections. And 13 months later, in August 2019, that proposal was implemented and the ESA protections were changed with the modifications as I explained to you with the agency's PowerPoint. Okay, I'm using the Hill as a source here. Let's do a media bias fact check on the Hill. What the heck is the Hill? It's an American political newspaper and website. It focuses on politics and policy in Washington, D.C., Congress and the presidency, and they claim to be nonpartisan reporting. So let's check on that with the Media Bias Fact Check site. And they say they have a left-center bias. Okay. We're going to look in between this window, July 2018 to August 2019. So we'll start in July 2018 and move forward in time. The spokesman for Center for American Progress said the law to protect endangered species in America is working, but yet the GOP was scrambling to reform the ESA. President and CEO of American Humane said saving the ESA from extinction is important. And yet the Trump administration calls endangered species protections a regulatory burden. At the same time. Again, the same time, a year ago. The White House is working to undermine the Endangered Species Act. Here's how. A professor from Cornell University. A spokesman for the Competitive Enterprise Institute said, wildlife has little to show for the staggering cost of the ESA. So, a year ago, there was a push to change the Wildlife Act that sparked a lobbying blitz from those who wanted change and those who didn't. The spokesman for the National Wildlife Federation said energy development will likely land one bird on the endangered species list. And that's the sage grouse in Idaho and Wyoming are the two stronghold states for sage grouse. They do inhabit 8 other states. According to the Pacific Legal Foundation spokesman, proposed changes will help recover endangered species. And Republicans were accelerating efforts to overhaul the Endangered Species Act. A year ago, thousands of scientists sent Trump a letter defending the ESA. And spokesman for the International Fund for Wildlife Conservation said, our latest challenge is to preserve the ESA. Spokesman for the World Wildlife Fund said humans have caused the largest loss of biodiversity since the dinosaurs were wiped out. Spokesman for Center for Biological Diversity said, fund the ESA and save 99% of the wildlife on the brink of extinction. Okay, so now we're up to August 2019 when the Trump administration, quote, roll back, unquote, ESA protections. Democrats blasted that rollback. Washington Post called the Trump administration another threat to endangered species. 2 months ago, the Center for Biological Diversity spokesman wrote, the Trump rewrite of the Endangered Species Act could threaten monarch butterflies, which is currently under FWS review. The regulation changes, he said, could be the beginning of the end for this species. It's a beauty. The Rocky Mountain corridor doesn't have monarch butterflies. The rest of the nation enjoys monarch butterflies and their migration patterns. So, the spokesman for Pacific Legal Foundation wrote, Interior has now revised the species rules. What happens now? How will these changes affect species conservation? He said the changes will preserve the ESA's effectiveness at preventing extinctions while also placing many species on the road to recovery. For example, if FWS lists the monarch butterfly as threatened, the Section 4D rule for protection may actually benefit the species. How so? Monarchs need milkweed habitat. Most of this habitat is on private lands, farms and ranches. And these could provide key corridors for the monarch's great migrations. Under the old rules, burdensome land use regulations would likely deter landowners from planting milkweed. The new rule, by contrast, will allow FWS to extend important protections without creating perverse incentives that would keep landowners from planting milkweed. National Center for Public Policy Research spokesman said ESA reforms will benefit wildlife and people. That outfit is right biased. Spokesman for Safari Club International, actually their CEO, said the new ESA rules provide clarity and enhance species health. Safari Club is a hunters, organized group of hunters. Last month, Democrats proposed a bill to revoke endangered species rollback. 17 states now have sued the Trump administration over the so-called weakening of the ESA. And environmental groups have sued the administration over these ESA changes, filed a lawsuit. Wild Earth Guardian says, we're not going to let it stand, we'll see them in court. So Wild Earth Guardians and 6 other groups hired Earth Justice to take their case to court. So this lawsuit makes 3 claims against the new rules. 1, the administration failed to publicly disclose and analyze the harms and impacts of these rules in violation of the National Environmental Policy Rule. Number 2, they inserted new changes in the final rules that were never made public and not subject to public comment, cutting people out of the decision-making process. Number 3, unreasonably changed requirements for compliance with Section 7, where federal agencies' actions cannot jeopardize species listed or adversely modify their critical habitat. So these 3 claims are the first set in what will be a larger legal challenge by these groups. On August 20th, they filed a 60-day notice of intent to sue on additional claims relating to ESA Section 4, including, and I'll take these one at a time, the 4D rule and the economic considerations. Okay, the new rule, we'll take them one at a time. The new rule eliminating automatic protections for newly listed threatened species. Pop quiz, what's the name of that new rule? 4D. Very good. The 4D rule.